Access your free language gifts right now, before they expire. Here's what you're getting this month. First, the Going to the Mountains Conversation Cheat Sheet. You'll learn all the must-know words and phrases for hiking and camping with this new cheat sheet. Download it for free right now. Second, the Most Common Adjectives PDF ebook. You'll master over 90 common adjectives with this bonus PDF picture ebook. You can download and review it on any device. Third, what's your New Year's resolution? With this bonus phrase list, you'll learn to say common goals like read more, save money, and learn a language. Fourth, the Winter Words and Phrases Writing Workbook. You'll learn over 60 words and phrases for the winter and holiday season, and practice writing them with this printable PDF writing workbook. Download it for free right now. Fifth, must-know email words and phrases. Learn how to say email, reply, spam, and much more with this quick 1-minute lesson. Sixth, looking for a new language learning app? With the Innovative 101 app, you'll learn language fast and start speaking in minutes because the audio and video lessons are just 3 to 15 minutes long. Learning is that easy. Download Innovative 101 for free for the Android, iPhone, and iPad. And finally, the deal of the month. If you want to finally master the language with lessons by real teachers and our complete language learning program, get 55% off 24-month premium with our extended holiday deal. To get your gifts and language learning resources, click the link in the description below. Download them right now before they expire. Hi everybody, my name is Alicia. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about the differences between can and could. This lesson is going to include a lot of information and some example sentences. If you want to know more about any of these points, try searching our YouTube channel for a lesson with some more detail. Okay, let's get started with the first point, number 1 up here. The first way to use can and could that I want to talk about is to express abilities. So an ability that refers to something we are able to do or not able to do. When we want to talk about a present ability, something we can do now, I just used can to express that, something we have the ability to do now, we use can plus a present tense verb. This expresses a present ability, something we can do now. It's possible for us to do that now. To make the negative form, we use cannot or can't. Can't. I can't do something. When we want to talk about a past ability, for example, something in our childhood or something when we were in school, we use could plus a present tense verb again. So this verb in past and present form uses a present tense in this position, this verb here. We always use a present tense verb in this position. This expresses a past ability. We know this because we're using could in this pattern. Let's take a look at a couple of examples of this. First, a pair of present tense statements. The first one here is, I can speak English. I can speak English. So a very basic pattern, hopefully many of you can use. Here we see can plus speak in this case. Speak is a present tense verb, and then we have the language here. So a reminder, we use speak when we're talking about our language abilities, not I can talk or I can say, but I can speak English. Of course, we could change this to a negative. I can't speak French, for example. We can use the same pattern, just replacing can with the negative can't. I can't. Let's look at a different one though. She can't swim. She can't swim. So here my subject has changed, yes, to she. There's no change here to reflect the subject. And swim, my verb following can't, remains in the present tense. So these are very basic examples of how to express our abilities with can and can't in present. So let's compare this then to using could to make past tense expressions. So as I said, could will change from can to could, but the verb does not change. Let's see how we use this. He could speak Spanish when he was a kid. He could speak Spanish when he was a kid. This is a past tense ability statement, and something you'll notice is very common in these past ability statements is a point in time, or like a time period, when. So he could speak Spanish when? When he was a kid. So you'll notice this is also in past tense, not when he is a kid, when he was a kid. At that point in time in the past, it's finished now. So we'll often include a time period or a point in time in the past to help us understand this ability. One more example here. This is a negative example. We couldn't watch the movie. It was too violent. We couldn't watch the movie. It was too violent. So here, this is a past tense negative. Couldn't is the reduced form of could and not. We could not watch the movie. So we could say, yes, this is kind of like a possibility statement, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But we can also use this kind of expression to explain it was not possible for us to watch the movie. Like, I didn't have the ability to watch that movie. We might use an expression like this. So the reason here, instead of a point in time, which we probably understand from the situation, like we couldn't watch the movie last night, or we couldn't watch the movie last weekend. Instead of a point in time, I included a reason. So why couldn't I watch the movie? Or why couldn't we watch the movie? It was too violent. So it is the movie. The movie itself, this was past tense, a past situation. Violent, violent. So this means there's maybe like action, people attacking other people, hurting other people, maybe very graphic scenes, extreme or intense images. It was too violent. So we can use couldn't to talk about these kinds of things too. I'll explain a little bit more when I talk about point number 3 in this lesson. So this is how we use can and could for present and past tense abilities. All right, let's continue on to point number 2 for this lesson. Point 2 is using can and could for requests and for offers. So this is actually a bit simpler than this point, I think. The difference here when you're making requests and offers with can and could is just that can sounds more casual. It sounds a little bit more friendly. Could sounds a bit more polite. So both of these are okay to use in most situations. If you want to sound a little bit more formal, a little bit more polite, you can use could. In most everyday situations, we use can. So we begin our request or our offer, usually with can, and we make a question with it. There are a couple of other variations too. I'll show you a couple examples. So let's look at using can first. So let's begin our sentence, our question, with can here. Can you help me with my homework? Can you help me with my homework? This is a request. Please help me, in other words. So instead of please help me with my homework, which sounds like we're desperate maybe, please help me, using can you is kind of like asking, do you have the ability to help me with my homework? Is it possible? Would it be okay? So it's a bit softer than using please. So please help me. It's okay, there's not a communication problem, but can you help me with my homework? Sounds a bit nicer, a little bit more friendly. Now let's look at using can to make an offer. I can buy you a coffee if you like. So if you like is like if you want one, if it's okay, do you want one? If you like, a nice offer expression. I can buy you a coffee. So here in the offer pattern, can comes before the verb. So again, we can think of this a little bit like an ability. So it's like the speaker is saying, right now, I have the ability to buy you a coffee. would you like a coffee? But that doesn't sound natural. It's like saying, right now this is possible. I can buy you one, so is that okay? I can buy you a coffee if you like. So this is a nice, friendly way to make an offer. Let's compare this then to using could in similar patterns. So as I said, could is going to sound a little bit more formal, a little more polite. First example is a request. Could you please send me the files? Could you please send me the files? So I've added please here to show again it's a little more formal. And in this case, perhaps it's a business situation. Maybe it's a business situation. Send me the files. So this is a work request, perhaps. Maybe that's why the speaker is using could and please. You'll also notice that when I'm using could or can to create a request question, I'm following the word can or could with the person I want to help me. So in this case, I'm using you for both of my sentences. But you might hear some sentences where the speaker asks for someone else to do something. So this person is not in the conversation. I'm talking to someone else. I would ask this person, please ask that person to do something. Like, can he join the meeting later, for example? That's something that you might hear too. For these requests, and for probably a lot of requests though, we use you after can or could. But you may hear he or she or they used in these patterns too. Okay, let's finish this part with an offer using could. If it's helpful, we could teach your staff about the new software. If it's helpful. If it's helpful, so again, it's a softening expression, kind of like if you like, but this sounds a little more formal. If it's helpful, if you like, we could teach your staff about the new software. So this is an offer. We are offering to teach your staff about the new software. We use could to do that. We could do this, like again, we have this ability, yes, but in this case, could is not referring to a past tense situation. We're using could to make a polite offer. We could teach your staff. So this is one example of how to do it. Okay, so this is how we use can and could to make requests and to make offers. Let's continue then. I want to move back to this side of the board to point 3 for this lesson. So I talked a little bit about this in point number 1, but we also use could to talk about present and past possibility. So first, let's look at a couple of sample patterns. This is probably, I think, these two, the most common patterns you might hear. They use could and could not. So first, an explanation. In many of these possibility statements, we use could plus the verb be, plus often some kind of like adjective phrase. When we make the negative form, we use could not plus the verb be plus our adjective phrase. So when we make a past tense possibility statement, we follow a similar pattern, but we use have been instead of be. So this pattern is our present tense possibility statement, a present situation. Have been, this could have been pattern, refers to a past possibility. So let's take a look at some example sentences that use these patterns. First, the meeting starts at 2, but nobody's here. I could be in the wrong place. So here is my could be. So I included this part to show the situation. Situation and context are quite important for these kinds of statements. So in this case, the speaker is waiting for a meeting that starts at 2, and the speaker is thinking to himself or herself, the meeting starts at 2, but nobody's here, so I could be in the wrong place. Another way to say that is, it's possible I am in the wrong place. Wrong means incorrect. I'm in the incorrect place. The meeting is somewhere else. So could be expresses this possibility. There's a possibility I'm in the wrong place. You might also hear might used here instead of could. I might be in the wrong place. So the difference between might and could is very small in this situation. I could be in the wrong place is very neutral. It's not like positive or negative. There's not a high chance or low chance. Just it's possible. If I said I might be in the wrong place, it sounds like there's a higher chance, like maybe 50% or 60%. It's not a rule, but there's a higher chance I'm in the wrong place. Like, I might be in the wrong place. Sounds a little bit more certain than I could be in the wrong place. So it's just the level of certainty there. So I could be in the wrong place. Let's look at another example. This one is a past situation, a past situation. It's a conversation. Person A says, hey, was that Michael? So you're on the street. Was that Michael over there in that coffee shop, for example? B says, no, that couldn't have been Michael. He's out of town. Out of town. So out of town means away from the city. So here I'm using couldn't have been Michael. So that means that guy over there you pointed to, that couldn't have been Michael. Could not have been. This means it's impossible that was Michael. There's no chance, absolutely no chance that was Michael. I know because he's out of town. He's out of town. He's not here. So couldn't have been means impossible. That couldn't have been Michael. He's out of town. So we use these two patterns to express possibility. And yes, please keep in mind that this negative I've used here, couldn't have been, means not possible, not possible. So couldn't be as well, the negative in the present form, is also reflective of an impossible situation. So here I used the positive could be, meaning it's just possible. But when you use the negative form, it means something is impossible. So for example, let's imagine the speaker in this situation came to the correct place. So the speaker looks at his or her watch and says, the meeting starts at 2 o'clock and everybody is here. I couldn't be in the wrong place. It's impossible I'm in the wrong place because everybody is here. I know I'm in the correct place. So I couldn't be in the wrong place. I'm in the correct room. So impossibility is reflected with use of the negative form. With the positive form, it's just simple possibility, very neutral. Final point here, we make questions with this same kind of pattern. So we do this often when we're thinking, like thinking to ourselves. So I'm alone and I'm thinking to myself about something, or when I need to confirm something with someone else. So an example, could this be the correct building? So could this be the correct building? I would use this if I'm like checking my phone, checking the GPS on my phone, searching for a place. I have a meeting, something. I'm looking around and I think this building is correct. I think to myself, could this be the correct building? So that's a sentence or a question a native speaker might say. I feel in most situations though, we just say, is this the correct building? We just say it with is. Could this sounds more like, is it possible this is the correct building? So it might sound a little bit more formal. I feel like in everyday speech, more commonly we say, is this the correct building? But you might sometimes hear could used in this kind of pattern. Let's look at one more example. Could I have made the wrong decision? Could I have made the wrong decision? So again, the speaker is thinking about something in the past, or maybe they're speaking to a friend. Could I have made? We know this is a past expression because of this grammar right here. Could I have Made, have made shows us that this is something the speaker chose to do in the past. So could I have made the wrong decision? Could be the speaker thinking out loud to himself or herself. Is it possible I made the wrong decision? Or the speaker could be asking someone else, could I have made the wrong decision? And they're expecting some kind of opinion. So we're using these patterns to talk about possibility. So you might hear some questions that use could in this way. But keep in mind, these are a little bit different from these offer type questions we talked about. Okay, let's move along then to point number 4 for this lesson. Point number 4 is about unreal situations. Unreal situations. So when we use could with unreal situations, there are quite a few patterns that we can use. But I wanted to introduce just a couple of very kind of simple ways that we use this. So I've made just this very simple pair of if clause and main clause. And I've got here main clause with could. So a point to be careful of is when you're making your unreal statement and you're using this if something something main clause something something pattern, make sure your could is in your main clause. We do not use could in the if clause, so no could goes here. Your modal verbs in general, don't put them in the if clause, put them in the main clause. So that means like will, won't, may, might, all those words, put them in your main clause. Could as well. So there are a few different patterns that we use with unreal situations. So I want to talk about these two. They have a little bit of challenging grammar, so let's take a look. First one, if I won the lottery, I could buy a house. If I won the lottery, I could buy a house. Here's my if clause. If I won the lottery, comma, I could buy a house. So here is could. So could is used, yes, to talk about this unreal situation. So we know it's not real because of this if right here. So that means I have not won the lottery. By the way, lottery is a game. So we can win a large money prize by chance. So we buy a card or a ticket and maybe we get a large prize for that. It's a game, kind of gambling. Anyway, if I won the lottery, meaning I have not won the lottery, but if I did, I could buy a house. So this could is reflective of this possibility point, or kind of you can think of it as this ability point too, a little bit. But it means I would be able to. So I would have lots of money, so it would be possible to buy a house. So we use could to reflect that. If I won the lottery, I could buy a house. Possibility here. So we do not use can in this case. We use could because it's an unreal situation. We don't use this can to talk about these unreal situations. Please use could here. Let's upgrade a little bit, more challenging grammar here. If clause again, if we had finished work earlier today. If clause, if we had finished work earlier today, we could have gone to the movie theater. We could have gone to the movie theater. So this is a very challenging sentence to understand. Let's take a look. If we had finished work earlier today, earlier than we did. So we finished work at 8 p.m. But if we had finished, so this is referring to a past action, it's complete. If we finished work, or if we had finished work at 5 p.m., for example, earlier than we finished, we actually finished at 8, but if we had finished earlier, maybe 5, we could have gone to the movie theater. So could have gone. This use of could refers to an activity in the past, a possible past activity that would have been possible if this part were true. So again, to recap, we finished work at 8. We could not go to the movie theater in this situation. But if we finished work earlier, if we had finished work earlier, for example, 5 p.m., in that situation, which is not real, did not happen, We could have gone to the movie theater. It would have been possible. So we use these kinds of sentences to talk about all this stuff in the past that did not happen, but we just want to dream about it. So this is an example of how we use could. And again, we use could here, not can. We make a past tense example, or a past tense pattern rather, by using have plus the past participle form of the verb. So again, a challenging grammar point, but this is one we use a lot to dream about past situations. Okay, let's finish this lesson with point number 5, kind of a small point. So I want to go back to point 2 here. We talked about using can and could to make requests and offers. Another thing you might hear is using can't and couldn't to make suggestions. So you'll notice all of these use the negative form. So the difference here is that when you use the positive, as we talked about in point 2, positive form sounds a bit more like a request. It's like you want something. When you use the negative, though, it's like you're giving something. You're giving a suggestion. So using the can is a little more like you're pulling maybe information or you're pulling something. Using can't is like you're giving a suggestion or you're giving advice. So we use can't or couldn't in the same way that we use can and could to sound a bit more polite. And we often pair this, we often use this together with just. Just is like a modifier. It changes the feeling to sound like simpler or a little more gentle, like just a simple suggestion, just a small suggestion. So can't you, for example, you is very common here, as I talked about in these patterns, but we can use he, she, they, we, and so on. Plus, for present tense situations, for present tense sentences, suggestions, we use a present tense verb here. For couldn't, we can talk about, again, present tense situations, or we can imagine, as we did here, we can imagine a past tense situation and you want to give advice, you want to give a suggestion about that past situation. You can do that with couldn't plus past participle verb form, as we did here. So, some examples of this. First, can't you just leave earlier? Can't you just leave earlier? So someone who's always late, for example. Can't you just leave earlier? You could remove just, that's okay. Can't you leave earlier? But just softens it. It's like, this is a small suggestion. Can't you just leave earlier? Another one, couldn't you just call to confirm? Couldn't you just call to confirm? It's a small suggestion. So sounds a little more polite because we're using couldn't here. Finally, couldn't you have created a bigger budget for the project? Couldn't you have created a bigger budget for the project? So this is another past tense situation, so we're dreaming here again. So couldn't you have created shows us this was a past thing that someone did, the listener did. So the listener created a budget for the project. The speaker is saying, couldn't you have created a bigger budget for the project? So this is giving a suggestion, or rather the speaker's opinion about a choice or a decision the listener made in the past. So we use these negative forms to give suggestions, to give advice, to give opinions, not so much requests or offers. Okay, so that's a lot of information, a lot of different ways to use can and could. And also there are some patterns, there are many patterns that I did not talk about in this lesson. So you can try to, I think, use these 5 points maybe to understand a little better the different uses of can and could as you listen and as you read as well. So I hope that this is helpful for you. Again, if you want to know more about any of these points, you can try searching our our YouTube channel to see if there's another whiteboard video specifically about one of these points. So please take a look at that. If you enjoyed this lesson too, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel as well. Don't forget to check us out at EnglishClass101.com for some other things that can help you with your English language studies. And also, if you have any questions or comments, or if you want to practice making some example sentences, please feel free to do so in the comment section of this video. Okay, thanks very much for watching this lesson, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye. Hi everybody, my name is Alicia. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about vocabulary words for symbols on English keyboards. I'm also going to give an example sentence that uses each of these vocabulary words. So let's get started. Let's begin on this side of the whiteboard. The first symbol I want to talk about is this symbol. It's a dot, yes. This dot is not in the middle of the line. The dot appears here. So this is called a period, a period. A period comes in this position here, as in use a period at the end of a sentence. So in English writing, we place the period, this dot mark here. You'll find this on English keyboards everywhere. This is how we use the period. Another very common mark is the comma, the comma. So commas are used in the middle of sentences usually, or they might come near the beginning of a sentence. We use a comma before a coordinating conjunction. So if you want to know more about exactly when to use commas, please search our English Class 101 YouTube channel or our website to find the video about how to use commas. So when a comma appears in a sentence, it looks like this usually. So here, this is very, very easy to see, I think. But in the middle of a sentence, a comma appears like this. So here, it's not correct to use a comma right here, but in a sentence, it looks like this. Okay, let's move on to the next word. The next word is colon, colon. So these two dots, one on top of another, this mark is called a colon, a colon. So use a colon before a list, for example. So if I want to make a list, I would make my colon like this, and then I list item 1, item 2, item 3, for example. This is one way to use a colon, a colon. This is the mark for it. So again, it's not correct. I haven't made this sentence to be a list, but that's how it would look in writing. So we use colon sometimes before lists. Okay, the next mark here is very, very similar to the colon. This is a dot, and under it, it looks like this comma. This is called a semicolon, a semicolon. So we use a semicolon to connect independent clauses. So independent clauses are two individual ideas. So this is a full sentence, a full idea, and another full sentence, a complete idea. We can connect those with semicolons. For example, use a semicolon to connect independent clauses. Semicolon. Use a period, blah, 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 as I said up here. Use a period at the end of a sentence. So if I want to connect this idea and this idea together, I can do that with a semicolon, and I don't need to use a coordinating conjunction. So again, these are some punctuation-related rules. For more information about that, please take a look at the other videos on our channel. So this is a semicolon, a semicolon. Okay, let's move on to the next one. The next mark, this mark looks just like the comma, I know, but the positioning of this mark is important. This mark is called an apostrophe. Apostrophe. This word is pronounced apostrophe. So in a sentence, we would say, never use an apostrophe to make a word plural. Never use an apostrophe to make a word plural. So we use apostrophes to show possession. So for example, if I want to say something belongs to me, or someone wants to say something belongs to me, I use an apostrophe before the S there. This shows it's something belonging to Alicia. The apostrophe looks like this, just a quick dash, a quick mark between the last letter of my name and an S. So this shows possession. Something belongs to me. We use an apostrophe to show possession. So it looks like this. On a keyboard, the mark may look like this, but it appears above the letters. Please note that a comma appears on the line where the letters rest, kind of, like where the comma, or I'm sorry, where the period appears. A comma appears there. An apostrophe appears above the letters. Okay, let's move on to our next mark then. The next mark, this is a mark that comes in a pair. That means there's a set. These are called quotation marks, quotation marks. So use quotation marks to show dialogue. Dialogue is, for example, when you're reading a story and character A says something, character B says something. We mark the character's speech with quotation marks. So when the character begins speaking, we use these open quotation marks. When the character finishes speaking, we use these closed quotation marks. So this helps the reader understand where the speech starts and where the speech stops. So this makes reading much easier. These are called quotation marks, quotation marks. To be very specific, these are double quotation marks. You can see there are two lines here. When you're making, in some specific situations, you're making like a quotation inside a quotation. This is a very specific situation. When you do that, you'll use single quotation marks. These look like apostrophes a little bit. So again, that's for very specific situations. In most cases, you only need to use the regular double quotation marks. Okay, let's move on then to the next list of items. The next list is starts here with this hyphen. So this is a very short mark, a very short horizontal dash. Please keep in mind there are a couple of other dashes that we use in English writing, but you don't find those typically on keyboards, or they're not as commonly used from the keyboard. A hyphen, however, is on the keyboard. We use hyphens to connect words. So connect words with a hyphen. So in a word or a phrase like free for all, we connect free, for, and all together with hyphens. Hyphens come between the words. So there are some rules for when to use hyphens, but the mark for today's lesson, this mark is called a hyphen, Okay, let's go to the next one. The next word is slash, slash. You may see this direction. You may see the other direction too, a slash in the other direction. Most commonly, we see the slash in this direction. So a slash is commonly used online. Slashes are common in URLs. So URLs, those are like the website names, the names that we type in to go to websites. So slashes are common in URLs. It's also very common in programming too. Okay. Our next vocabulary word, again, it's a pair. These things are called parentheses, parentheses. So as I talked about with quotation marks, when we use parentheses, we need to use them in a pair. This one, just as with quotation marks, this one that's shaped like this is called the open parentheses. This is used when we begin sharing some extra information. This one is called the closed parentheses mark, the closed parentheses. We use this when we finish sharing extra information. So as I said, we use parentheses to give extra information. So maybe it's not the most important point, but we want to share a little bit of extra information in our sentence. We can put parentheses around that information. That shows that it's just kind of extra. So open parentheses, closed parentheses. These are very commonly used, and you can find them easily on most, I think, English keyboards. Okay, let's go to the next mark. This mark is called ampersand, ampersand. You might, I suppose, hear people call it the and mark because we use an ampersand in place of and. So if you want to describe something that is like a law firm or an organization, and there's an and in the title of that, In many cases, like to save space, you'll see this used in place of and. So for example, company A and company B, instead of writing and in the middle, they might use ampersand. So this is up to kind of the company or the person's choice, or sometimes it's just to save space. But this is called an ampersand. Okay, onward to the next mark. This mark has become very important with the rise of social media. We call this @ or the @ mark. So we use the @ mark in email addresses. So for example, yourname@gmail.com. So we use @ to describe this mark. We also use this in social media handles for our usernames on social media. Before our username, we use the @ mark. So that means that's how you can reach that person. This has also, interestingly, become a verb, as in, @me your information, or please don't @me, which means like reply or don't tag me in something. So we use @ or @ mark to describe this. Okay, one more in this part of the list. This mark here, this is called the pound sign or the number sign. So we use the pound sign before a phone number. This is very commonly used before a phone number. So you might see it, or you would have seen it in like an old phone book, for example. However, I should note that this is also read these days as hashtag. So when you see this in social media posts, especially on like Instagram or Twitter, when you see this mark plus a word, so for example, this mark plus English, it should be read as #English. So in that case, we do not read it as pound sign or number sign English. It's read as hashtag. So those are tags for the thing that you are sharing. That's a different use of it. So in today's English, in today's very internet-driven vocabulary, we use hashtag to mention or to describe this mark. Okay, let's go to the last list, the last part of the list rather. This is called an exclamation point or an exclamation mark. End a sentence with an exclamation point to show surprise. So when we end a sentence with this mark, it means we should read it with like a more excited voice, or we should read it with an exclamation. So for example, when I read this sentence, I could use that excited tone of voice, like end a sentence with an exclamation point to show surprise. That's the feeling of using an exclamation point. So you might see this used a lot on social media to show surprise or to show shock, or maybe if someone is scared, they would use an exclamation point to describe that. Okay, another very important mark is the question mark. The question mark. In English, we end questions with a question mark. We do not begin questions with any kind of question mark. The question mark is at the end of the sentence only. End a question with a question mark. Okay. The next symbol is this star symbol. This is called an asterisk, So it's quite difficult to say this word, even for native speakers. Asterisk. Some people might call it a star, that's okay, but this is called an asterisk. So we use asterisks sometimes for notes. So you might see this very small mark at the end of a sentence, or maybe at the end of a word, especially in a book. We don't see this so much in like social media, but you might see this at the end of a sentence or at the end of a word. You see this little star mark, this asterisk mark, and oftentimes at the bottom of the page or at the end of the chapter, there's a note about that sentence or about that word. So we match this asterisk to an asterisk at a different place on the page that has more information in a short note. So this is a common way that we use asterisks in English writing. Okay, the next two are like math-related symbols. This mark, we usually just call it the plus. We might call it like the plus sign or the plus mark, but in most cases we just say plus when we see this symbol, plus. So use plus for more specific searches. So I wanted to include this because this is a really helpful thing that you can use when you're doing a Google search for information. Same thing with quotation marks. So if, for example, you want to search for something specific, let's say, for example, you want to know how to find a lesson about present perfect tense, and you want it to be a lesson about English present perfect tense. If you want to look for this on Google specifically, you can put in quotation marks present perfect tense. So that means you want to search for this phrase exactly. And you can include the plus mark to show you want to include something else. So present perfect tense, this phrase, plus maybe English, or another phrase, or maybe advanced English, for example. So using a plus can help you to make more specific searches. So you want your search results to be something that's about present perfect tense and advanced English. So using plus can help you do that, making your searches a little bit more specific. Of course, you can also use this in Math Plus. Okay. Next one, as I said, also a math-related mark. This is the equals mark, or just equals. In most cases, we read this as equals, equals. So we use the equals mark in math. We show the solution to something, or like the end result of something, with the equals mark. So sometimes we don't always use just math with this. Like, for example, in some social media posts, people might describe their day and say, for example, friends plus sunshine plus delicious food equals great day. So it's kind of like a math situation, but we use plus and equals to show these things together equals or has the result of something. So you may see this used in social media a lot. Okay, the last item for this lesson is this. So again, this is another pair. These are called brackets. Brackets. So you can find these on English keyboards, yes. Perhaps from this list, they are the least commonly used. We use brackets for extra information inside parentheses. So I talked about parentheses here. We use parentheses to give extra information. But sometimes, it's not so common, sometimes inside the parentheses, we want to give even more extra information. To do that, we use brackets inside the parentheses. So we need to clearly show like the hierarchy. So this is the first level, extra information. Second level, extra information is with brackets, brackets. So again, we have this open bracket and a closed bracket. We need to use these in pairs. So brackets go inside parentheses. This is one way to use this. Okay, so this is an introduction to some, I think, very useful everyday vocabulary. These are all very common, fairly common. Maybe this is the least common, as I said. These are all common symbols that we use pretty much every day when we're using the computer, when we are emailing people, when we are using social media, and so on. These are also things you can notice as you are reading books. So the rules that I talked about in this lesson are also applied to books. Sometimes the rules are a little bit different depending on if the thing you're reading is like a magazine or a newspaper. Some different types of writing follow slightly different rules, but in general, this is a fairly good guideline for how you can use these symbols as well, and the vocabulary words for them, the names of these symbols. So I hope that this was helpful for you. Of course, if there are other symbols that you want to know more about, or if you have any other questions about English keyboards, please feel free to let us know in the comment section of this video. Also, if you liked this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and check us out at EnglishClass101.com for some other things that can help you with your English studies. Thanks very much for watching this lesson, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye. Hi everybody, my name is Alicia. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about past and past. These words can be commonly confused because they have very similar pronunciations, but they have different grammatical functions. I'm going to talk about maybe some of the most confusing points about these words. Let's get started. Okay, First, I want to look at the word past, P-A-S-T. So past has a few different parts of speech that it's commonly used in. In this lesson, I'm going to look at past as an adjective, as a noun, and as a preposition. First, let's take a look at how we use past as an adjective. So, we use past as an adjective, meaning it modifies nouns, to mean something that happened or existed before the present. So a reminder, the present is now. Something past is something that happened before now. So yesterday, last week, last weekend, last year. So we use past as an adjective with a noun to explain something that happened or existed in the past. Some examples. Which of your past jobs was the most challenging? Which of your past jobs was the most challenging? So here, past modifies jobs. That means jobs you had before. So before now, your past jobs. Which of your past jobs in the past was the most challenging? The next example. In past meetings, we talked about hiring new staff. In past meetings, we talked about hiring new staff. Here, past is modifying meetings. So that means meetings before now. In those meetings, plural, in those meetings, we talked about hiring new staff, getting new staff members. So past, in this way, refers to something that happened before now, or it can refer to something that existed before now. Let's continue to the next use of past as an adjective. So we use past to mean ago, or time that has gone by. So let's look at some examples of this. First one, I've been working on this project for the past 2 weeks. I've been working on this project for the past 2 weeks. Here you'll notice I'm using this I've been working pattern. So this is a present perfect progressive pattern. This shows us I started working on the project 2 weeks ago, and I've been working refers to continuous work for those 2 weeks. So that means my start point was in the past, which I'll talk about later. My starting point was 2 weeks ago, and I've been working, I continued working until now, the present. So this refers to time that has gone by. So this time period, we kind of explain that with past, the past 2 weeks. This the past 2 weeks means the most recent, the past 2 weeks, the past hour, the past week, the past month. That means this most recent week or this most recent time period, whatever that is. So the past 2 weeks means this time that has gone by. One more example of this. We met for a coffee this past weekend. This past weekend. So again, this weekend, that went by. So meaning last weekend in this case. This past weekend, I could change this to say, we met for a coffee last weekend. But you might hear someone say, this past weekend. So this past weekend, again, we know it means the most recent weekend because it means this. So you might hear this or the, and that shows us the most recent of that time period. So we use past in this way. And this is kind of a pattern you might hear more in American English. You might hear slightly different uses that follow this meaning in British English. Okay, let's continue to one more point about the adjective use of past. So we use past when it's relating to verb tense. So I've used it maybe in this lesson when we want to talk about actions before the present and we're explaining it in terms of language, we use the expression past tense. So for example, I think I said here, this is present perfect tense. We also use past to talk about the verb tense we use to explain past actions or past existence. For example, ate is the past tense form of eat. So the verb eat in past tense is ate. Ate is the past tense form of eat. One more example. Please conjugate the verbs to past tense. Please conjugate the verbs to past tense. Conjugate means change the verb form. So please conjugate the verbs to past tense. So when you're talking about actions or existence in the past and you want to talk about the language-related word we use to do that, you can use past tense. So this is an overview of the adjective uses of the word past. I want to go now to number 2 here, the noun use of the word past. So as a noun in a sentence, past means the time before the present. So that just means any time before the present. We can call that the past. So for example, the introduction to this lesson is in the past. Some more examples. He has a dark past, a dark past. So dark means it's not good, probably. Dark. So it's not light, it's not great, it's dark. So that means his life before the present time is dark. One more example. Don't think about the past. Don't think about the past. So that means the things that happened before. Don't think about those things in the past. So past as a noun means just any time, all the time before the present. And you'll often see the before past, the past. Don't think about the past because there's only one, sort of, if that makes sense. It's like all time before now is the past. It's in the past. Okay, so lastly here, I want to talk about number 3, which is the prepositional use of the word past. I'm going to talk about 2 points here. First is using past to mean after. After. For example, we're past small talk. We're past small talk. In this situation, past means we're beyond small talk. So for example, this sentence might be in a situation where 2 people have become friends. Maybe at first you use small talk. How's the weather? How was your weekend? Very easy conversations. But after time, you become closer and you can talk about more complicated issues or you can talk about deeper topics. You can say, we're past small talk. This means our relationship is beyond or it's after small talk. We're past small talk. So this refers to someone's relationship. We often use this to talk about activities or our relationships to other people. Another very common example is using it with time periods. For example, it's half past 4. It's half past 4. That means it's 4:30. It's half past 4 means it's half after 4. So this prepositional use of past means after. After. Finally then is this prepositional use. So we use past to mean moving close to and then beyond. Moving close to and then beyond. So a great example is a car and, for example, a house. So the car moves close to the house and then the car moves beyond the house. This is a very common example of how this is used. So if we imagine the same idea with these example sentences, we can see how past communicates that. Here, he walked past the restaurant. He walked past the restaurant. So here, if this is my restaurant, here's a person walking. He walked past the restaurant. So this means he moved close to the restaurant, then beyond the restaurant. He walked past the restaurant. Another example. They drove the boat past the harbor. They drove the boat past the harbor. So again, here is my harbor, here is the boat. they drove the boat past the harbor. So that means there's no stopping. It was a continuing motion. So past the harbor or past the restaurant. We use past as a preposition in this way. This is a key point of confusion, I think, and I'm going to talk about past in just a moment. So these are the main points I want to talk about with past as adjective, as noun, and as preposition. Okay, so with that in mind, let's take a look now at past, P-A-S-S-E-D, past. So past is the past tense form of the verb pass. So I talked about over here, we use past, P-A-S-T, to talk about the language-related terms we use for verbs. So here, past tense of the verb pass. So one point of confusion that happens here is that this past tense, past, shares a meaning with the prepositional use of past I talked about here. So this to move beyond meaning, this is shared. There's one meaning of the verb pass, which is to move beyond something, that is shared with the prepositional past use. However, just because the meaning is shared does not mean we can use them in the same way. We cannot use past and past in the same way. We have to create different sentence structures. So let's change these sentences I talked about in the beginning of this lesson to past, P-A-S-S-E-D form. Here, he passed the restaurant. He passed the restaurant. So I can use the same example I mentioned earlier. So to move in a direction and then to move beyond something. You'll notice here there's no verb, there's no hint about how he moved. Was he in a car? Was he walking? Was he jogging? Was he skating? We don't know. We only know he passed the restaurant somehow. In this sentence, he walked past the restaurant. We do know. We know he was walking. So this is your choice. You can choose to use he passed or he walked past. It's totally up to you. Both are correct. One more example. The boat passed the harbor. The boat passed the harbor. So again, same situation. We don't know exactly how the boat passed the harbor. Did the boat quickly pass the harbor? Was someone driving the boat? Was the boat just floating, drifting? We don't know. But this communicates the basic situation. The boat moved in the direction of the harbor and then continued beyond it. So past does share a meaning here, but the sentence structure is different. So please keep this in mind. All of these sentences are correct, but these sentences give us a little bit more information. So we might use sentences like these when it's very clear. Like, for example, if you're waiting in the restaurant and you see your friend walk in front of the restaurant and continue walking, you might think, oh, he passed the restaurant. Like, you know he was walking. So you might use it in a situation like this. In a situation where it's important to communicate exactly how the person passed, you might use the P-A-S-T pattern. Okay, so this is one point of confusion, I think, for many learners. Now, let's move on to another point. This is related to time. So when I talked about P-A-S-T, I talked a bit about how we use it to express time that has gone by. We have a P-A-S-S-E-D form as well. So, for example, 2 hours passed. 2 hours passed. Here, it's being used as a verb. Again, this is the past tense of the verb pass. So 2 hours passed, that means 2 hours went by. For example, I'm waiting for an appointment. And 2 hours passed, that means 2 hours went by. I cannot say 2 hours P-A-S-T, that is incorrect. This is a verb. P-A-S-T, as we talked about here, is an adjective. I cannot use it there. You could say, for example, I've been waiting, as I used here, I've been waiting for the past 2 hours. That would be correct. We cannot use PASSED in this way. So again, this may be a point of some confusion, but keep in mind verb form, 2 hours past, the verb is coming after the time period, and past 2 hours or 2 weeks. Your adjective is coming before your time period. Let's look at one more example. A month has passed and I haven't heard from my client. A month has passed and I haven't heard from my client. So here, I'm using, in this case, again, present perfect tense. So a month is my starting point, a month ago. A month has passed. So in this time period, I have not heard from my client. A month has passed. So again, this is the verb form, past. I cannot use PAST in this way. I have to use the verb form because this is a present perfect sentence structure. A month has passed and I haven't heard from my client. Okay, I want to talk about a couple of other points about this verb, past. Actually, there are many uses of the verb past. I can't cover all of them in this lesson, but a very important point to note is this one, to refuse something or to not accept something. So when we're in a casual situation and we want to refuse something in a friendly way, we can use the verb pass, like I'll pass, or just pass. So that sounds a little bit friendly, sometimes a little bit rough. In past tense, we use past, as I've talked about, and we use often, in many cases, the preposition on before the item we refuse, or before the item we do not accept. For example, she passed on dessert. She passed on dessert means she refused dessert. She didn't want dessert. She did not accept dessert. She passed on dessert. Another example, he passed on my offer. He passed on my offer. He declined my offer. He refused my offer. So this means refused, did not accept something. Important to note though, using passed on with nothing after the preposition can cause some maybe very important confusion or some very troubling confusion. When we use he or she passed or he or she passed on, it can refer to death. So we use the expression to pass on to maybe more politely say he or she died. So he passed on last week means he died last week. If the context is not clear, you may cause some confusion if you just use on, passed on, like she passed on. Of course, if you're talking about like work or a dinner situation, there's probably a low chance of confusion if you use she passed or he passed. It's probably not going to cause confusion, but there may be some situations where it's very important to note this part of your sentence. So please be careful when you use past and passed on in this way. As I said, there are many different meanings for the verb pass, but I wanted to talk about some that can cause some confusion, especially with the word past, P-A-S-T, as I talked about earlier in this lesson. So I hope that this helps clarify, or I hope it helps make some things clear about the differences between these two words. Remember, the key differences are in grammatical structure in the parts that I focused on in this lesson, specifically this part and in this part too. So I hope that it was helpful for you, but if you have any questions or comments, or if you want to practice making some sentences, please feel free to do so in the comment section of this video. Of course, if you liked this lesson, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and check us out at EnglishClass101.com for some other things that can help you with your English studies. Thanks very much for watching this lesson, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye. Hi everybody, my name is Alicia. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about adverbs of frequency. Let's get started. Okay, first, what is an adverb of frequency? An adverb of frequency is a word, or I've also included a few phrases in this lesson. It's a word that answers the question, how often? How often? So how often do we do something? How often do I do something? So these words, these adverbs of frequency, give us the answer to that question. We can place adverbs of frequency in different places in sentences. We can place the adverb of frequency before the verb, that's okay. If the verb you're using, however, is the verb be, however, you need to place the adverb after that. So, for example, in a sentence like, he is excited, if I want to place an adverb of frequency in that, where the sentence uses the verb be in is, I would put it after is, like he is always excited. So that's a key point to remember when you're using the verb be. In today's lesson, though, I'm going to focus a lot on this next point. Some adverbs are commonly placed at the beginning or at the end of a sentence. So I want to focus today on this point and on placing the adverb of frequency directly before the verb you want to modify. So I have a few example sentences here. First, this one, I sometimes eat salad for lunch. I sometimes eat salad for lunch. This positioning, this word sometimes, this is my adverb of frequency. I've placed it before the verb eat. So in this way, I'm using this pattern here. The adverb of frequency is before the verb I'm modifying. I sometimes eat salad for lunch. In these examples here, however, I've changed the placement of the adverb. Here, it's at the beginning of the sentence. Sometimes I eat salad for lunch. Sometimes I eat salad for lunch. And here, I eat salad for lunch sometimes. You might hear that as well. So a pattern like this, where the adverb comes at the end of the sentence, you might hear more in everyday speech, like we want to add a little extra information right at the end, or we just think of something, so we add it at the end. You might hear that. It's less common, I feel, to use something like this in written English, but you might hear it in spoken English too. Also, please keep in mind that when you're using these adverbs, like at the beginning or at the end of a sentence, they can change the meaning or they can modify the meaning of the whole sentence. So this is kind of unique to adverbs, what are called sentence modifying adverbs. I'm not going to talk a lot about that in this lesson, but please keep in mind that sometimes changing the position of your adverb changes the way that adverb affects the sentence. For today's lesson, we're going to keep it very simple though, and just look at the differences in these words. So, now that we know we can use these adverbs in different positions, I want to talk about the variety of adverbs. So for this lesson, I prepared a scale from 0 to 100. And this scale shows us frequency, how often we do something. So I've also marked on this scale some words, or some phrases rather, that we use at the beginning or at the end of sentences. I've marked those with this red star. And I've included a couple of extra phrases here that we use similarly to these adverbs of frequency, but they're actually like a group of words. So let's take a look. The first word, let's start at this part of the scale. The first word here is never, never. So never is at the 0 point. This is for something that you never do. You do it 0 times. For example, in this sentence, I never eat salad for lunch. I never eat salad for lunch. That means it's something that just does not happen in your life. So we use never for something that does not happen, 0. Next on the scale are these 3 words. So the first one, this is tough for many people to pronounce, rarely, rarely. I rarely eat salad for lunch. Or in my other example, he is rarely excited, if I want to use the verb be in an example like this.
Rarely is close to 0 but is not 0. So it's getting there. It's a little bit close to 0. So this is something that we use for an activity or a situation that is not like common. It's not something that we do often. We do that rarely. These words mean the same thing. Seldom, seldom, seldom and rarely have the same meaning. Hardly ever, hardly ever. Please be careful. This is not hardly never. Hardly never is incorrect. Hardly ever. I hardly ever eat salad for lunch, or he is hardly ever excited. All of these words mean very nearly never, but not quite never. So maybe this is like 8 or 10 on our scale here. So rarely, seldom, hardly ever. In terms of differences, seldom is probably the least commonly used from these 3 words. I feel hardly ever is fairly common. Rarely sounds a little bit more formal to me though. But none of these are incorrect or strange. It's just seldom is probably the least commonly used. If I were to recommend, I would suggest using hardly ever in everyday speech and perhaps rarely if you want to sound a little bit more formal. Okay. So let's move on to the next part. The next part, this is one of the sentence modifying, in this case, phrases I mentioned. This phrase is every once in a while. Every once in a while. At native speed, we would say every once in a while, every once in a while. So this is a phrase that we usually position at the beginning of a sentence. We do not use this phrase. Please note, we do not use this phrase in this position. I every once in a while eat salad for lunch. We do not use it in that way. Please use this phrase at the beginning of a sentence. Every once in a while, I eat salad for lunch. You might hear it at the end of a sentence. I eat salad for lunch every once in a while. You might hear it there too. But please don't use this directly before the verb, okay? So every once in a while shows us it's kind of not regular. So every once in a while, it sounds like when I have the feeling to do something, or there's not really a schedule for it. Just one time in a while. It's like in a kind of vague period. We don't know exactly the period, but when the speaker feels like it, I eat salad for lunch every once in a while. That's the kind of feeling. It's not really a regular thing. So I've put it a little bit lower than sometimes on this scale. Okay, so let's continue to sometimes. So sometimes was in my example here, all of my example sentences. And sometimes I've marked with this red star. Sometimes can be used at the beginning or at the end of a sentence. And it's pretty much on the 50, like the 50 mark here on the scale. So it's like the halfway point. It's not never and it's not at 100. It's very like halfway here. So we want to describe something that happens with some regularity. There's perhaps some schedule to it or something that we do a little bit more often, but it's not so common for us. That is sometimes. I've also put below this another phrase, and this is another one that we use in this position at the beginning of a sentence or the end of a sentence. The phrase is every so often, every so often. So yes, often is in this here, and I'll talk about often in just a moment. But this does not mean often. This phrase means sometimes or perhaps even a little bit less. So just like every once in a while, we use this for something that doesn't really have like a set schedule. It has the feeling of sometimes. There's not really a common, it's not really a common activity. So we would use it here. So every so often, I eat a salad for lunch. Or I eat a salad for lunch every so often. That's the feel of this expression. So these two phrases, please remember we use them at the beginning and at the end of sentences. Okay, with that in mind, let's continue to this part of the scale. The next word here is occasionally, occasionally. So this word sounds a little bit more formal. It has a similar regularity. It's about the same as sometimes, But this word sounds a little bit more formal. If I want to sound more formal, instead of choosing sometimes, I might choose occasionally, occasionally. This is another one that can be positioned at the beginning or at the end of a sentence. Occasionally, I eat salad for lunch. I eat salad for lunch occasionally. And again, if I want to use it in a to be verb sentence, as in he is excited, I would say he is occasionally excited. So occasionally sounds a little bit more formal than sometimes. Occasionally. Okay. Let's move on then to often, often. So here on the scale, we're at maybe 75 or so. So this is for something that happens often. We do it with some regularity. So maybe it's every month, for example, or every week. Something you do often. So this is maybe something that's normal for you to do often. So this one is very common in everyday speech, and when we pronounce this, at least in American English, we don't pronounce this T. We don't say often, often. We usually pronounce it as often, often. So please keep that in mind when you use this. I often eat salad for lunch. Often, I eat salad for lunch. Or, I eat salad for lunch often. With this one, I would suggest using this in this position. The ones on this scale, the words on this scale, I have not marked with a red star. I suggest you use these in this position, directly before the verb you want to modify. These words that do not have a red star, they sound most natural in this position. You might hear, yes, you might hear people in speech using them in these positions, but it's going to sound a little bit more natural, well, actually a lot more natural to use it here. I often eat salad for lunch. Sounds much more natural here. Okay. Onward then to usually, usually. I said usually just now. You might hear some people say usually as well, but in most cases we say usually, usually. And interestingly, this word has become kind of, or rather this word has given birth to a new expression, which is usuge, or the usuge, which is short for the usual something. And actually the dictionary, as of the time of making this video, is having trouble trying to find the best way to spell that word, the usuge. So the usuge is referring to something that a customer always gets when they come to the store. So if I'm staff at a restaurant or a coffee shop and I know this customer is a regular customer, they come every day or every week, I know the customer's usual order, what they usually get. I can say, would you like the usual? And the customer might say, yes, I'd like the usuge, the usuge. It's like a cool kind of rough way of saying my usual order, please. That comes from the word usually, usually. So usually is higher up on the scale, and because I've marked this with this red star here, we use it usually at the beginning or at the end of a sentence. I would say in most cases we tend to use it more at this position at the beginning of a sentence. Usually I eat salad for lunch. It sounds quite nice. You can use it here too. I usually eat salad for lunch. Sounds nice. So usually, it's a very regular activity. And that's why we use this word to talk about a regular customer and their regular order with the usuge. In that case, it's a noun. So usually, usually. Next word here is frequently. Frequently shares a meaning with usually, but frequently sounds more formal, and we don't use it so much in everyday speech. You might hear this in a business meeting, perhaps, or in more academic situations. So something that needs a higher level of formality. So frequently, it sounds a little too formal for this topic, actually. Frequently, I eat salad for lunch, or I eat salad for lunch frequently. It sounds a little bit too formal, so we would use this in more formal contexts, more formal situations. Okay, finally, the final word here is always, always. So we tend to use always in this position. So I would not recommend using always here or here. So always I eat salad for lunch doesn't sound so natural, nor does I eat salad for lunch always. Please use this one in this position. I always eat salad for lunch. And in my to be verb example, he is always excited. So always, always. Please use that in this position. Sounds great. Okay, I want to finish this lesson then by looking at one more group, which I have down here. I've marked this with this red star again, and a red asterisk rather. These are kind of different from the ones I've introduced here. These are what I've called time period-based adverbs. These words are hourly, which means every hour, daily, every day, weekly, every week, and monthly, every month, yearly and annually, so every year. Yearly and annually mean the same thing. Annually is a little bit more formal. We use these typically at the end of a sentence. So we don't usually put these at the beginning or before the verb we're modifying. These very commonly come at the end of a sentence. So some examples of how we use these would be, I check my phone hourly. I check my phone hourly. So hourly means every hour. Every hour. Every hour I check my phone is another way to say that. It's very common to put this at the end of the sentence. This is showing us this whole activity happens every hour. It's modifying the whole sentence. Another example is I check my budget weekly. I check my budget weekly. So again, weekly means every week, every week. And so every week I check my budget. But we put this at the end of the sentence typically. I check my budget weekly. So these hourly, daily, weekly, these show us a time period, or like they give us that how often answer, but with time too. Please note, like smaller than hour, there's nothing smaller. We don't use minutely. You might hear by the minute for some things, but we don't use minutely or secondly. We don't use those. So please begin with hourly, daily, weekly. Okay, so this is an introduction to a lot of different adverbs that you can use to describe frequency. So I hope that this was helpful for you, and please try to use these to make some example sentences in the comment section of this video. Of course, if you have any comments or questions or anything like that, please feel free to let us know about those in the comment section as well. I hope that you enjoyed this lesson. If you did, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and check us out at EnglishClass101.com for some other things that can help you with your English studies. Thanks very much for watching this lesson, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Ask Alicia, the weekly series where you ask me questions and I answer them. Maybe. Okay, let's get to your first question this week. First question this week comes from Aristotle. Ooh, hello Aristotle. Aristotle says, could you please differentiate pastime, and past time? Sure, great question. Okay, let's start with pastime, to pass time. To pass time, or you might also hear to pass the time, means just to use time in such a way that it becomes later, slowly. So another way to think about this could be to waste time in some cases, or maybe just to relax. So you are doing some action in order to use some time up. We use this expression when we have to wait a while before our next activity or our next appointment, or when we just have no plans for the day and we're just hanging out at the house. We can say, I'm just passing time, or I'm just doing this to pass the time. So this is how we use pass time. Next, let's talk about pastime. So pastime is one word. A pastime, this is a noun, refers to something you did in your childhood, like a story that you really liked to read all the time, or a game that you really liked to play, something that you did with your family or your friends. Those things are referred to as pastimes. So typically we associate them with good memories. So you could say, for example, like, that's one of my favorite pastimes. I loved reading that book with my family. Okay, the final question that you had was about past time, past time. This expression means it's beyond the time at which something was supposed to happen. So for example, it's past time for lunch, we should go. Or it's past time to start the meeting, is everything okay? So past time refers to something that is beyond an expected time. So I hope this helps answer your question. Thanks very much. Okay, let's get to your next question. Next question comes from Zachary. Hi, Zachary. Zachary says, hi, Alicia. Does one say 102 or 102, or are both correct? Also, does one say half hour or half an hour? Thank you. Okay, first your question about 102 or 103 or 103, whatever. Both of those are fine. You can choose whichever you prefer. So for example, in our channel name, English Class 101, we typically say 101 because that's the pattern we use for school, for college level classes or maybe other level classes. In those cases, the pattern we use is to read the numbers individually, 101. However, when you are reading any other number, you can use either pattern you prefer. 101 is fine. 101 is fine. I think I probably usually say 101. That's probably what I would say, or 102. But you may hear people say 101, 102, and drop that and in the middle. So it's up to you for that one. Your second question was about half hour or half an hour. This kind of depends a little bit on the person, and it depends on the grammar of the sentence. So for example, if you said something like, this should take about a half hour, that's probably pretty normal in most cases, but it's maybe not grammatically correct. You might hear people say that. If you ask, how long will this take? Someone might respond, probably a half hour. But if you want to be super grammatically correct, you could say, this will take about a half an hour. So it's sort of up to you with this one. In a lot of cases, you might hear that half hour used, but if you're ever not sure, I would recommend using half an hour in your text and in your speech. So I hope that this answers your questions. Thanks very much. All right, on to the next one. Next is from SBS. Hello, SBS. SBS says, how do I study English with your playlists? I can't seem to find a grammar playlist. Ah, okay. Perhaps the playlist was added after you sent this question. So for anyone else who has this question or who wants to know how to study with our YouTube videos, if you check the playlists section of the English Class 101 YouTube channel, you can scroll along to find some grammar playlists. So there's basic English grammar. You'll find a lot of whiteboard lessons that you can check there. So I recommend reviewing those playlists from time to time as we update them every once in a while. So if you haven't checked the playlists recently, please go do so. You might find some things that can help you there. Thanks for the question, and I hope you find what you need. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next is from Tin from Vietnam. Hi, Tin. I hope I said your name right. Tin says, hi, Alicia. I'm from Vietnam. I want to know the difference between do you mind and would you mind? Okay, great question. Do you mind versus would you mind? A lot of it can depend on the tone of voice, but generally speaking, we use do you mind if we're a little bit irritated with someone, or we can use do you mind if we're a little irritated with someone. For example, someone is typing very, very noisily when we're trying to talk to someone on the phone. We might say, do you mind typing a little slower? If you want to make it sound a little more polite, you could say, would you mind typing a little bit slower? But if we want to communicate that feeling of irritation or annoyance, we would probably say, do you mind doing this? If you want to sound really aggressive, you can just say angrily, do you mind? But that sounds quite direct, so hopefully you don't need to use that. So do you mind is a way to ask someone to do something. Like, do you mind helping me with this, or do you mind stopping that activity? For me, it feels a little bit more direct to use do you mind. When you use would you mind, it sounds a little more polite, in my opinion. It sounds like something you would use for a request more, like would you mind helping me with this, or would you mind doing this for me? So that sounds a little bit more like a polite, kind, thoughtful request. I would use do you mind if I want to express a little bit of anger or a little bit of irritation with someone. You might hear people use them interchangeably, but I would suggest you pay attention to the tone of voice they use when they use this expression, either expression. That will give you a good hint if you're not sure. All right, thanks very much for your question. Let's move on to the next one. Next one is from Jefferson. Hi, Jefferson. Jefferson says, what is the difference between these? Me, myself, him, himself, you, yourself, her, herself, and it, itself. Good question. A little grammar review. So let's look at me and myself, just to choose one for an example. We use me as the object of a verb, right? Like you hit me, for example. We use myself when we're talking reflexively about something. So what does that mean? When we're talking reflexively, or when we're using a verb reflexively, it means that the subject is also the object of the verb. So I used hit in my example sentence, like you hit me, or something like that. If I want to make this sentence a reflexive sentence, or if I want to use hit reflexively, I would say, I hit myself. I would not say, I hit me. So in cases where your subject is also the object of the verb, you need to use this reflexive pronoun, so itself, himself, herself. We could use the same pattern if we want to change the subject. For example, he hit himself, she hit herself. We would not say he hit him. That's a totally different sentence. That means there are two people involved. One person hits another male person. He hit him. So the point is, these myself, himself, herself, these words, these are called reflexive pronouns, and we use them when the subject and the object of the verb are the same. So I hope that this helps you. Thanks very much for the question. Okay, that is everything that I have for this week. Thanks very much for sending your awesome questions, as always. Of course, if you want to send me a question, you can do so at EnglishClass101.com/ask-Alicia. There's also a link in the description. Also, if you enjoyed this lesson, please, please, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Check us out at EnglishClass101.com for some other things that can help you with your English studies too. Thanks very much for watching this lesson, and I will see you again soon. Bye! Hi everybody, welcome back to Ask Alicia, the weekly series where you ask me questions and I answer them. Maybe. Okay, let's get to your first question this week. First question this week comes from Brinto. Hi Brinto. Brinto says, can you please tell me the difference between change, exchange, and interchange? Sure, let's talk about it. Let's start by talking about change. We can use change in probably the most situations out of these three words when we want to alter something. So we want to make a different kind of something, or we want to use a different type of something. We can use change to describe that. So if you want to make a maybe slight alteration, which is a noun that you can use to describe a change as well. If you want to do something in a document, for example, you want to write a new sentence in a document, or you want to remove a sentence in a document, you would describe that as a change, as a noun. Or if you want to use a verb in this case, you could say, I changed the document. That means you altered it, or you made it different in some way. The key with change is that you are making something different in some way, or you're adding something new, you're removing something that wasn't there. Some common expressions you might hear change used in are, for example, like to change the baby, which means to change the diaper on the baby, to put a new diaper on a baby. Or as we talked about earlier, to make a change in a document can also be described as changing a document. So adding or removing something to make something different, that's what we use change to talk about. Let's move along to exchange. To exchange means to usually have two things that you want to swap. So we use this a lot when we are shopping. For example, if you go to a store and you buy a shirt that's small, but you needed a shirt that's a medium and you realize it after you got home, you might come back to the store and ask to exchange the shirts for a different size. That means you have two things that are the same or very, very similar, and you want to swap them. So we use exchange to talk about this. Like, I exchanged my shirts at the store yesterday. To use another example, you could talk about maybe exchanging money at a currency exchange stand. So when you want to transfer money from, for example, US dollars to euros, you would ask for a currency exchange, or in other words, to swap money in this way. So when you use exchange, you are switching. You can think of switching or swapping one thing for another thing. Okay, finally, let's go to interchange. Interchange. I use the word interchangeably, or you can use them interchangeably a lot on this channel. That means that you can replace something with something else. Like, it's okay to use that thing or this thing in this place. So to use something interchangeably means that you can use one or two or maybe three or more things in exactly the same way or in exactly the same position. So this is different from exchange, which refers to some kind of transaction usually. Interchange doesn't have this feeling. It's like saying you can use anything in this place or you can use anything in this way. Exchange doesn't have this feeling about it. It just kind of refers to switching or swapping two things that are similar or roughly equal. So I hope that this helps you understand the differences between change, exchange, and interchange. Thanks very much for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Nihan. Hello, Nihan. Nihan says, hi, Alicia. I've got a question. Is there an adjective in English meaning that you won't talk to anyone because you're sulking, but it's temporary because another person did something wrong to you, and it's not that you often sulk as a personal quality? Yeah, this is an interesting question. We might not use an adjective in this case. If I had to choose an adjective specifically, I might describe this feeling as gloomy, like you feel gloomy because someone else did something to you or something happened and your mood is low. You might say, I'm gloomy. Or you might say, I'm feeling dejected, or maybe if it's really serious, despondent, like you don't want to talk to somebody and it's very, very serious. What we might say instead of using a specific adjective in this case, if you are actively not talking to someone because you're upset with that one, we might instead say we're giving someone the silent treatment, which means you are not talking to someone because they did something wrong or because there's some kind of problem. So we often say that that's a kind of punishment, like not talking to someone is a kind of punishment. So we might use that kind of expression in this case, like, oh, I'm giving him the silent treatment. He made a huge mistake and I don't want to talk to him right now. So we could use something like that to express that kind of feeling. You feel upset, you don't want to talk to someone, you are giving them the silent treatment. I hope that this helps you. I hope this kind of communicates the idea that you were expressing in your question. Thanks for an interesting topic. Okay, let's move on to our next question. Next question comes from Gerardo Vega. Hello, Gerardo. Gerardo says, hello, Alicia. I'd like to know, what's the difference between stare and look at? Thank you very much. Sure. Okay, let's cover look at first. We use look at to refer to moving our eyes to something. So we focus our attention on something when we use look at. Like look at the camera means use your eyes to focus on the camera. So we use our eyes in a direction when we look at something. Look at that. Look at him. Look at her, right? But stare, to stare at something, means yes, to use your eyes to focus on that, but it means you don't move your focus. So for example, if you see something interesting, or maybe you see like an attractive person, or you see something you really want to eat, whatever it might be for you, if you look at something for a very long time and you don't look at anything else, you can describe that as staring at something. So for example, a pretty girl crossed the street and he stared at her for 10 seconds straight. So that means someone focused their attention on another person, 100% focused their attention on another person for 10 seconds straight. So stare means a long period of focused attention. To look at does not have this feel. We just use our eyes to focus and to take in images. So this is the difference between look at and stare. I hope that this helps you. Thanks for the question. Okay, let's move on to our next question. Next question comes from Achchu. I hope I said that right. Achchu says, White House staffer has tested positive for COVID-19 on CNN, and White House staff has tested positive for COVID-19 on BBC. In our country, we use staff commonly, but staffer is new to me. Is this an American lingo? What's the difference between them? Great question, yeah. So staff generally is used to talk about a group of people, right? The people who work at a company or an organization. We're talking about everybody there, all of the employees, all of the members. We say that's the company's staff. Those are the people that work there or they belong to the organization. So we understand staff as a group of people, right? However, you may, in some cases, see the word staffer. We tend to see this more, I feel, in like government organizations or maybe more official organizations. Staffer refers to one person only, one person only. So in this case, as with the news reports, a staffer got a disease in this case, we want to use staffer here to refer to one person only in this news report. So this might be a decision, it might be a decision that's determined by the reporting agency. Different reporting agencies might follow different rules for if they choose to use staff or maybe employee or staffer, but this is what it means. Staffer refers to just one person. Staff refers to a group of people generally. So I hope that this helps you understand the difference. Thanks for an interesting question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Onuralan. I hope I said your name right. Onuralan says, "Hi Alicia and team. Thanks for your great work. It's amazing." Awesome, thank you. "Sometimes I receive short messages from native speakers without a personal pronoun, like got it. As far as I know, this is okay in Spanish or Russian languages, but can I do this in short sentences in non-formal verbal speech only, or should I avoid it?" Good question. So when you get messages like these, like got it or understood, those kinds of things, it's totally normal, it's totally natural to use those kinds of expressions in quick messages. Typically with your friends, with your coworkers, your colleagues. If you're close to somebody, it's generally understood that it's okay to drop that. You don't have to say, "I got it," or "I understood." It's fine to just say understood or got it. If, however, you don't have such a close relationship with someone, if you are talking to a client for the first time, or you're exchanging emails with a teacher for the first time, or you're making a new connection, it's better to write full sentences. I would recommend that you don't use these kind of casual expressions until you know someone and you've developed a little bit of a relationship with them. But then, absolutely, it's completely fine to use these short messages just to show you've received something, or you saw something, or you understood some information. So yeah, got it, or understood, or even just great, something like that. Those are perfectly fine to use, and they're very effective ways to communicate as well. So I hope that this helps you. Thanks very much for the question. All right, that is everything for this week. Thank you very much, as always, for sending your interesting questions. Remember, if you want to send a question for this series, you can send it to me at englishclass101.com/ask-Alicia. You can also find a link in the description of this video. If you like this lesson, please, please, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and of course, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Also, check us out at englishclass101.com for some other things that can help you with your English studies. Thanks very much for watching this episode of Ask Alicia, and I will see you again next week. Bye.
Flood. 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 A flood is a type of natural disaster. A flood happens when there's water on the streets, too much water. So much water, for example, it's hard to walk or cars get covered. This can happen because a lot of rain causes river levels to rise or because of some other issue relating to water not draining in a town. The flood destroyed the town. The flood destroyed the town. The flood destroyed the town. Typhoon. 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 A typhoon is a weather pattern that is a natural disaster. So a typhoon is different from a hurricane because a typhoon happens in the Pacific Ocean. A hurricane happens in the Atlantic Ocean. A typhoon is like a giant tower of water and wind. It spins very fast. There are very strong wind speeds, and it's very dangerous to go outside. The typhoon is hit. The typhoon is hit. The typhoon has hit. Hurricane. 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 So we just talked about typhoon. Again, a hurricane is just like a typhoon, but it happens in the Atlantic Ocean, so in a different part of the world. Again, just like a typhoon, a hurricane creates a very, very tall tower of water and wind, maybe even lightning and thunder too, and it can be very, very dangerous to go near them. A hurricane has formed over the ocean. A hurricane has formed over the ocean. A hurricane has formed over the ocean. Tornado. 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 A tornado is similar to typhoons and hurricanes. However, a tornado happens on land. A tornado is a tower of wind and sand and dust and sometimes other objects. They whirl together, they spin together very, very fast and can be very, very dangerous weather patterns. The tornado is twisting across the prairie. The tornado is twisting across the prairie. The tornado is twisting across the prairie. Drought. 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 A drought is a condition that happens because of not enough rain in an area. So droughts, when they extend for a long period of time, can become disaster situations because farmers aren't able to grow food because there's not enough water. Drought is a real trouble for farmers. Drought is a real trouble for farmers. Drought is a real trouble for farmers. Islam. 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 Islam is one of the most followed religions of the world. Followers of the religion of Islam are called Muslims. The Islam faith was founded by the Prophet Muhammad. The Islam faith was founded by the Prophet Muhammad. The Islam faith was founded by the Prophet Muhammad. Protestantism. 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 Protestantism is a part of Christianity. It's like a type of Christianity. It came from Europe to the United States. It was considered a very conservative branch or a very conservative type of Christianity. Protestantism came as a break from the Roman Catholic Church. Protestantism came as a break from the Roman Catholic Church. Protestantism came as a break from the Roman Catholic Church. Catholicism. 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 Catholicism is a branch of Christianity or a type of Christianity. The leader of Catholicism is the Pope. Catholicism is the religion of those who accept the leadership of the Pope. Catholicism is the religion of those who accept the leadership of the Pope. Catholicism is the religion of those who accept the leadership of the Pope. Hinduism. 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 Hinduism is a very widely followed religion originally from India. Hinduism from India involves the belief in reincarnation and many gods. Hinduism from India involves the belief of reincarnation and many gods. Hinduism from India involves the belief in reincarnation and many gods. Buddhism. 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 Buddhism is a very well-known and very widely practiced religion and philosophy that is spread throughout Asia and now the rest of the world too. Buddhism is based on the teachings of the Buddha, the Enlightened One. Buddhism is based on the teachings of the Buddha, the Enlightened One. Buddhism is based on the teachings of the Buddha, the Enlightened One. Ankle. 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 An ankle is a part of the body. You have an ankle at the place where your foot meets your leg. That part between the two is called your ankle. The athlete sprained his ankle. The athlete sprained his ankle. The athlete sprained his ankle. Elbow. Elbow. Elbow.
An elbow is another body part. Your elbow is the part of your body where your forearm meets your upper arm. This part of the body is the elbow. The arm only bends one way at the elbow. The arm only bends one way at the elbow. The arm only bends one way at the elbow. Wrist. 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 Your wrist is the part of your body where your hand meets your arm. This part of the body here is called your wrist. The most common places to take a pulse are the neck and wrist. The most common places to take a pulse are the neck and wrist. The most common places to take a pulse are the neck and wrist. Knee. 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 Your knee is the part of your body that connects your lower leg to your upper leg. So you can touch it and tap on it. It feels quite hard. Keep in mind, yes, this word begins with a K in spelling, but the pronunciation is knee. The boy fell and scraped his knees. The boy fell and scraped his knees. The boy fell and scraped his knees. Skin. 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 Your skin refers to the outer part of your body. All of this is called your skin. These connected tissues all across your body, we refer to this as your skin. My skin is very delicate. My skin is very delicate. My skin is very delicate. Shave. 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 Shave is a verb. It means to remove hair with a sharp object. So many people, men usually, shave their faces, or we can shave other parts of the body too. We can shave arms, legs, and so on. He didn't shave for several weeks. He didn't shave for several weeks. He didn't shave for several weeks. Chef. 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 A chef is someone who prepares food professionally. The difference between a chef and a cook is that a chef has had special training. So they work in a restaurant or they work in a hotel creating food, creating menus, and so on. A cook, while they may have excellent food preparation skills, doesn't have the same type of training as a chef. The chef is making a meal. The chef is making a meal. The chef is making a meal. Non-smoking. 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 We use non-smoking as an adjective. We usually use non-smoking before a location, like a non-smoking room or a non-smoking restaurant. It refers to a place where smoking is not allowed. Could you find me a non-smoking room? Could you find me a non-smoking room? Could you find me a non-smoking room? Smoking. 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 So smoking refers to the act of smoking a cigarette or something else, but smoking can also be used as an adjective as with non-smoking. For example, a smoking room or a smoking section in a restaurant. So pay attention to the situations in which you see this word used to understand what part of speech the word is taking. There is a separate patio for smoking attached to the restaurant. There's a separate patio for smoking attached to the restaurant. There is a separate patio for smoking attached to the restaurant. Blood. 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 Blood is the red liquid that comes from our bodies when we get injured. Before it comes out of our bodies, it is blue. We can see it inside our bodies, we can see it in our skin. But when it comes out of the body, it becomes red. He cannot bear to see blood. He cannot bear to see blood. He cannot bear to see blood. Break. 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 So to break something means to cause it not to function. Or, for example, when you break an object, it means you crush it or you destroy it in some way, so you can't use it anymore. I broke one of my plates while washing the dishes. I broke one of my plates while washing the dishes. I broke one of my plates while washing the dishes. Cut. 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 Cut can be used as a noun and as a verb. We can use it to mean to separate two parts of something, with a knife usually, and we can use it to talk about an injury that we receive from something sharp. The boy fell and has a deep cut on his leg. The boy fell and has a deep cut on his leg. The boy fell and has a deep cut on his leg. Sprain. 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 Sprain is used as a noun and as a verb. As a noun, a sprain refers to a type of muscle injury. If you stretch or tear a small part of the muscle, you get a sprain. As a verb, to sprain refers to causing this type of injury. The athlete sprained his ankle. The athlete sprained his ankle. The athlete sprained his ankle. Microwave oven. Microwave oven. Microwave oven. A microwave oven is also called a microwave. It's a box that we use to heat up food quickly. The most convenient kitchen appliance is the microwave oven. The most convenient kitchen appliance is the microwave oven. The most convenient kitchen appliance is the microwave oven. Refrigerator. 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 A refrigerator is like a very large cold box that we use to store foods and drinks. Refrigerator is a very, very long word, so we usually say fridge. The refrigerator is full of food for the holiday. The refrigerator is full of food for the holiday. The refrigerator is full of food for the holiday. Vacuum cleaner. Vacuum cleaner. Vacuum cleaner. A vacuum cleaner is a machine we use to clean our floors. We usually use vacuum cleaners to clean carpets. So a vacuum cleaner is typically very, very noisy, and we push it to clean our house. This vacuum cleaner is very quiet. This vacuum cleaner is very quiet. This vacuum cleaner is very quiet. Sweat. 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 Sweat is both a noun and a verb. Sweat, as a noun, is the liquid that comes out of your body when you feel very hot, like when you exercise or when the temperature is hot. To sweat means for your body to go through the process of creating sweat. The athletes were covered in sweat after the game. The athletes were covered in sweat after the game. The athletes were covered in sweat after the game. Check in. Check in. Check in. Check in is a very common phrasal verb. We use it at hotels and at the airport to mean you announce your arrival to a person who works there. It's like you are showing up for your reservation. I'll check in at 10 p.m. I'll check in at 10 p.m. I'll check in at 10 p.m. Room number. Room number. Room number. A room number is a number assigned to a room where you live or in a hotel room where you're staying. Your room number is 514. Your room number is 514. Your room number is 514. Room key. Room key. Room key. Room key is the word we use specifically for a key you receive for your hotel room. We do not use room key to talk about the key to your house or apartment. This expression is for hotels only. Don't lose your room key. Don't lose your room key. Don't lose your room key. Wake up call. Wake up call. Wake up call. A wake-up call is a phone call that you can arrange for at a hotel. You can ask the front desk to call you at a specific time and wake you up. Hi, I'd like a wake-up call at 15 minutes to 6 in the morning. Hi, I'd like a wake-up call at 15 minutes to 6 in the morning. Hi, I'd like a wake-up call at 15 minutes to 6 in the morning. Check out. Check out. Check out. When you check out of a location, usually a hotel or perhaps also a supermarket, it means you finish your stay or you finish your transaction. Please check out before 10 a.m. Please check out before 10 a.m. Please check out before 10 a.m. Light. 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 Light can be used as a noun, as an adjective, and as a verb, actually. In this case, we want to focus on light for use in terms of colors and in terms of visuals. So light, in this case, refers to the opposite of dark. Light colors really suit you well. Light colors really suit you well. Light colors really suit you well. Gold. 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 Gold is a material and it's also a color. It is a bright and shiny and very valuable material, and when we see it in colors too, it has the same kind of feeling, this kind of luxurious and expensive look. She wears gold eyeshadow. She wears gold eyeshadow. She wears gold eyeshadow. Pink. 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 Pink is a very popular color. Pink in the US is commonly associated with girls. People think of pink as a girl's color. But historically, pink was used for boys and blue was used for girls. It just slowly became the reverse over time. The towel was pink. The towel was pink. The towel was pink. Silver. 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 Like gold, silver is both a color and a material. So silver is quite shiny, but it has a colder color than gold. It can also be very valuable, and people like to make jewelry out of silver, just like gold. I think silver looks better on you. I think silver looks better on you. I think silver looks better on you. Beige. 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 Beige is a neutral color. Beige is like tan, but it's a little bit light. Beige is a pale cream color with a yellowish tint. Beige is a pale cream color with a yellowish tint. Beige is a pale cream color with a yellowish tint. Raspberry. 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 A raspberry is a fruit. They are rather small and they can be quite tart. So tart means a little bit sour and a little bit sweet. They have kind of a surprising taste. I'm simply a huge fan of raspberries. I'm simply a huge fan of raspberries. I'm simply a huge fan of raspberries. Cough, cough, cough. Cough is a noun and a verb. As a noun, it refers to a bad health condition. As a verb, to cough means to force the air out of your lungs, usually to try to remove something. She's been coughing all night. She's been coughing all night. She has been coughing all night. Garlic, garlic, garlic. Garlic is a very popular ingredient in food. It can be used in soups, in pizzas, in sauces. So many different foods and so many different cuisines around the world love to use garlic. It has a very strong smell and a very strong taste, so you might smell like garlic even after you eat it. Cheese and garlic are always good on pizza. Cheese and garlic are always good on pizza. Cheese and garlic are always good on pizza.
Mustache, mustache, mustache. A mustache is a facial hairstyle, so many men like to wear a mustache. That refers to hair on the top lip. Your mustache looks good. Your mustache looks good. Your mustache looks good. Washing machine, washing machine, washing machine. A washing machine is a machine we use to wash something, but specifically a washing machine is used to wash our clothes. I use the washing machine to keep my clothes clean. I use the washing machine to keep my clothes clean. I use the washing machine to keep my clothes clean. DVD player, DVD player, DVD player. A DVD player is a machine you can use to play DVD movies. A long time ago, we had a DVD player machine in our house near the TV, but now we typically use computers with DVD player options. The DVD player is a device that can play DVDs. The DVD player is a device that can play DVDs. The DVD player is a device that can play DVDs. Fan, fan, fan. A fan is some kind of machine that blows air. You might also see fan used to talk about an object that we wave in front of our face to blow air. We use the same word for both of these. It's too hot. Can we turn on the fan? It's too hot. Can we turn on the fan? It's too hot. Can we turn on the fan? Air conditioner, air conditioner. Air conditioner. An air conditioner is a machine that creates cold air, so this is different from a fan. Air conditioner is quite long, so we usually just say AC. On a hot summer day, the air conditioner works all day to keep us cool. On a hot summer day, the air conditioner works all day to keep us cool. On a hot summer day, the air conditioner works all day to keep us cool. Stove, stove, stove. A stove is something you find in the kitchen. There are parts on the stove that you can set a pot or a kettle on, and the object will become warm. You might have a gas stove or a fire stove or an electric stove in your home. The kettle is on the stove. The kettle is on the stove. The kettle is on the stove. Elementary school. Elementary school. Elementary school. Elementary school is the first step in formal education. Kids in the USA start attending elementary school at around 4 or 5 years of age. When is she going to elementary school? When is she going to elementary school? When is she going to elementary school? Middle school. Middle school. Middle school. Middle school is the next step in education after elementary school. You might also hear middle school called junior high school. My 12-year-old brother goes to middle school. My 12-year-old brother goes to middle school. My 12-year-old brother goes to middle school. High school. High school. High school. After elementary school and middle school comes high school. High school in the USA is 4 years long. High school was the best time of my life. High school was the best time of my life. High school was the best time of my life. University. 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 University is education students can attend after high school. It's not required. University and college are often used in the same way, interchangeably. The difference is that a university offers courses after a 4-year course of study. A college offers just 4 years, an undergraduate degree. She's a university student. She's a university student. She is a university student. Principal. 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 A principal is like the leader of a school. We use principal for elementary school, middle school, and high school. We do not use this for university. Also, please note the spelling of this word. Principal, when used to talk about the top position at a school, is spelled in this way. My grandfather used to be a principal. My grandfather used to be a principal. My grandfather used to be a principal. Bright. 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 Bright has a couple different uses. We can use bright to refer to something that has a lot of light, and we can use it to talk about someone who is very smart and learns things easily. Now let's focus on the meaning of something that has a lot of light. My room is very bright. My room is very bright. My room is very bright. Laptop computer. Laptop computer. Laptop computer. A laptop computer is a computer that we can take with us. So we usually think of this as something that is mobile and portable, and if you want to, you can use it on top of your lap, on top of your legs. We typically just say laptop instead of laptop computer. I bought a new laptop computer. I bought a new laptop computer. I bought a new laptop computer. Mouse. 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 A mouse is computer machinery. Yes, there is an animal called a mouse, but we use this word to talk about the device we use to navigate, to move the arrow or to click around on our computer. A wireless mouse is very convenient. A wireless mouse is very convenient. A wireless mouse is very convenient. Speaker. 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 A speaker is something that produces sound. It's a machine. We can have a small speaker on our computer or our mobile phone, or we can have a large speaker like you might find at a concert hall. This factory manufactures speakers. This factory manufactures speakers. This factory manufactures speakers. Webcam. 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 A webcam is a camera that is connected to your computer that allows you to do video calls or video conferences. My webcam is not working. My webcam is not working. My webcam is not working. Microphone. 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 A microphone is a small machine that we use to pick up sound clearly. I'm wearing a microphone for today's video. We typically say mic because microphone is a long word. My computer has an internal microphone. My computer has an internal microphone. My computer has an internal microphone. Desktop computer. Desktop computer. Desktop computer. A desktop computer is like the opposite of a laptop computer. We typically don't move our desktop computer according to the location we are working in that day. Rather, you can imagine desktop referring to a computer you use on top of your desk. We typically just say desktop though, not desktop computer. I have two computers, a laptop computer and a desktop computer. I have two computers, a laptop computer and a desktop computer. I have two computers, a laptop computer and a desktop computer. Chili pepper. Chili pepper. Chili pepper. A chili pepper is a type of pepper that is very spicy or it's very hot. So you might hear people just say chili to refer to these. I don't like chili peppers. I don't like chili peppers. I don't like chili peppers. Corn. 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 Corn is a very common food. It's usually bright yellow in color, and depending on the place where you're in, you might eat it with butter, you might eat it with different seasonings, you might eat it on the cob, which is the original shape the corn comes in. You might also have the corn off the cob, too. I like steamed corn. I like steamed corn. I like steamed corn.
Single bed. Single bed. Single bed. A single bed is a bed that is sized for one person, a single person. The room came with a single bed. The room came with a single bed. The room came with a single bed. Double bed. Double bed. Double bed. A double bed is made for two people, so it's like imagining the single bed has been doubled. The double bed is very spacious. The double bed is very spacious. The double bed is very spacious. Hotel. 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 A hotel is a place where you can stay overnight that is not your home. Where is the hotel? Where is the hotel? Where is the hotel? Front desk. Front desk. Front desk. The front desk is the reception area of a building. In a hotel, it's the place where you check in and check out. We checked in and out at the front desk. We checked in and out at the front desk. We checked in and out at the front desk. Pacific Ocean. Pacific Ocean. Pacific Ocean. The Pacific Ocean is the ocean on the west side of the US. On the other side of the Pacific Ocean is Asia and Australia. The Pacific Ocean is one of the world's 5 oceans. The Pacific Ocean is one of the world's 5 oceans. The Pacific Ocean is one of the world's 5 oceans. Atlantic Ocean. Atlantic Ocean. Atlantic Ocean. The Atlantic Ocean is the ocean between the US, South America, and Europe and Africa. The world's largest mountain range is actually in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean.
The world's largest mountain range is actually in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. The world's largest mountain range is actually in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Indian Ocean. Indian Ocean. Indian Ocean. The Indian Ocean is south of the country of India, and it is to the east of Africa and the west of Australia. To the east of South Africa is the Indian Ocean, and to the west, the Atlantic Ocean. To the east of South Africa is the Indian Ocean, and to the west, the Atlantic Ocean. To the east of South Africa is the Indian Ocean, and to the west, the Atlantic Ocean. Australia. 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 Australia is an island continent. It's surrounded by water. You may be familiar with Australian English. There are specific dialects that are spoken there. Australia is the only island continent on Earth. Australia is the only island continent on Earth. Australia is the only island continent on Earth. Antarctica. 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 Antarctica is the very, very cold continent way at the bottom or at the pole of the Earth. Penguins live in Antarctica. Penguins live in Antarctica. Penguins live in Antarctica. Asia. 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 Asia is a very large continent. It goes all the way from Turkey in the west to Russia in the east. It includes countries like India, Indonesia, Singapore, Japan, South Korea, and many more. Asia is the largest of the Earth's 7 continents. Asia is the largest of the Earth's 7 continents. Asia is the largest of the Earth's 7 continents. Africa. 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 The continent of Africa includes many countries, languages, and cultures. It includes countries like Egypt and Morocco in the north and South Africa way at the bottom. I'll visit Africa during my next trip around the world. I'll visit Africa during my next trip around the world. I will visit Africa during my next trip around the world. Europe. 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 The continent of Europe includes many countries and many different cultures, many different languages as well. This trip to Europe is expensive. This trip to Europe is expensive. This trip to Europe is expensive. North America. North America. North America. North America has a couple of really big countries, the USA and Canada in the north, and it goes all the way south, including many other smaller countries as far south as Costa Rica. I'd like to go to North America. I'd like to go to North America. I'd like to go to North America. South America. South America. South America. South America is to the south of North America, and it also includes many different countries and languages, including Brazil, Chile, Peru, and so on. I've never been to South America. I've never been to South America. I have never been to South America. Indigo. 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 Indigo is a shade of blue. Indigo can be created naturally from plants. Indigo gets its name from the plant named indigo. Indigo gets its name from the plant named indigo. Indigo gets its name from the plant named indigo. Peach. 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 A peach is a very popular and sweet fruit. It's also a color. The color refers to the color of the fruit. A peach-colored blush will give you a fresh look. A peach-colored blush will give you a fresh look. A peach-colored blush will give you a fresh look. Dark, dark, dark. Dark refers to a state where there are no lights. We also use dark to refer to a color that is very deep. He has really dark hair. He has really dark hair. He has really dark hair. Annoying, annoying, annoying. Annoying refers to someone or something that causes you to feel irritated or causes you to feel annoyed. My loud neighbor is very annoying. My loud neighbor is very annoying. My loud neighbor is very annoying. Torso, torso, torso. The torso of a body refers to the part between the neck and the leg. So this part of the body is the torso. The torso is the upper part of the body, which attaches to the arms, legs, and head. The torso is the upper part of the body, which attaches to the arms, legs, and head. The torso is the upper part of the body, which attaches to the arms, legs, and head. Breast, breast, breast. Breast refers to a part of the female body. The chest area on the woman's body is referred to as the breast. Breast pain can be a symptom of cancer. Breast pain can be a symptom of cancer. Breast pain can be a symptom of cancer. Backpack, backpack, backpack. A backpack is a pack or a bag that you wear on your back. My backpack is so heavy. My backpack is so heavy. My backpack is so heavy. Pencil lead, pencil lead, pencil lead. Pencil lead is material that you use for writing with a mechanical pencil. When you need to replace that material, you buy this, pencil lead. That store stocks a wide assortment of pencil lead refills. That store stocks a wide assortment of pencil lead refills. That store stocks a wide assortment of pencil lead refills. Glue, glue, glue. Glue is a sticky material that you can use to attach objects to each other. Apply glue to the paper. Apply glue to the paper. Apply glue to the paper. Calculator, calculator, calculator. A calculator is a machine, or maybe an app, that you can use to do math. We can't use a calculator during the test. We can't use a calculator during the test. We can't use a calculator during the test. Pencil sharpener, pencil sharpener, pencil sharpener. So a pencil sharpener is something you use to make your pencil sharp. You need to use this if you do not have a mechanical pencil. I have a pencil sharpener. I have a pencil sharpener. I have a pencil sharpener. Wide, wide, wide. Wide is the opposite of narrow. We can use this to describe spaces, rivers, many things that are big across. The river is wide and deep. The river is wide and deep. The river is wide and deep. Narrow, narrow, narrow. Narrow refers to something that is very small across. Again, we can use this to talk about spaces, to talk about natural landscapes, and so on. The man is hiking on a narrow path.
The man is hiking on a narrow path. The man is hiking on a narrow path. Hard. 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 Hard can be used to mean difficult, and it can also refer to a surface or a material that is very tough. A turtle has a hard shell for protection. A turtle has a hard shell for protection. A turtle has a hard shell for protection. Soft. 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 Soft refers to a material that has a light feel or a very nice feel to it, like skin or maybe a pillow made of silk. Velvet material is very soft. Velvet material is very soft. Velvet material is very soft. Apricot. 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 Apricot might also be pronounced as apricot, depending on the person. It refers to a small orange fruit. I love apricot juice. I love apricot juice. I love apricot juice. Pineapple. 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 A pineapple is a fruit that has a very spiky look to it. You have to break it open to reach the yellow fruit inside. This pineapple is still unripe. This pineapple is still unripe. This pineapple is still unripe. Melon. 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 A melon is a type of fruit that you have to break open like a pineapple, but there are many different kinds of melons, like watermelons, cantaloupes, and more. I'd like a melon, please. I'd like a melon, please. I'd like a melon, please. Fig. 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 A fig is a very sweet and kind of dense fruit. It's often used in desserts. I ordered fig salad. I ordered fig salad. I ordered fig salad. Plum. 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 A plum is a purple fruit. They tend to be kind of sweet, but if you let them go too long, they might get rather sour. Prunes are dried plums. Prunes are dried plums. Prunes are dried plums. Cauliflower. 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 Cauliflower is a white vegetable. You can use it in salads, on pizzas, and more. We eat cauliflower dipped in ranch dressing. We eat cauliflower dipped in ranch dressing. We eat cauliflower dipped in ranch dressing. Cabbage. 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 Cabbage is a light green colored vegetable that's very commonly used in salads and maybe as toppings on other things. Cabbage has a strong smell. Cabbage has a strong smell. Cabbage has a strong smell. Celery. 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 Celery is a long green stalk. It's a vegetable that you can use to flavor soups and sauces. Celery is a great source of vitamin K. Celery is a great source of vitamin K. Celery is a great source of vitamin K. Eggplant. 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 An eggplant is a purple vegetable. Some people, especially who speak British English, call this an aubergine. I like to make stuffed eggplant with rice from the oven. I like to make stuffed eggplant with rice from the oven. I like to make stuffed eggplant with rice from the oven. Bean sprout. Bean sprout. Bean sprout. A bean sprout is quite literally a sprouted bean, so from the bean comes a string-like object. This is often used as a topping for something. Can I get a bean sprout salad? Can I get a bean sprout salad? Can I get a bean sprout salad? Accident. 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 An accident refers to a negative situation or a negative condition that happened without a plan. It was not on purpose. Her brother was in a car accident. Her brother was in a car accident. Her brother was in a car accident.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Monthly Review, the monthly show on language learning, where you discover new learning strategies, motivational tips, study tools, and resources. By the way, all the lessons and bonuses you're about to see can be downloaded for free on our website. So click the link in the description right now to sign up for your free lifetime account. Okay, today's topic is how to learn a language in 2022. If you're planning to learn a language in 2022, then this episode is for you, especially if you want to finally succeed with your New Year's resolution, instead of failing or giving up in the next week or two. That's why today you'll discover 1. The 4 critical steps you need to take when learning a new language, and 2. How to set goals and New Year's resolutions that won't fail you in 2022. How to learn a language in 2022. Part 1. The 4 critical steps you need to take when learning a new language. Every time you start a new language, you should start with 1. Goals, 2. Anchor points, 3. Grammar, 4. Reading. What are these 4 steps, and why do you need them to succeed with language learning? Let's jump in. The first one is goals. Everything starts with a goal, but your goal itself can also lead you to failure if you don't set it the right way. So more specifically, you need to set small, measurable monthly goals instead of just, I want to learn a language and be fluent this year. We'll cover goals in the second part of this episode, so stay tuned. After goals, the second step is setting anchor points. What are anchor points? Imagine a small ship in the middle of a big lake. It's windy, lots of waves, and the ship is bobbing up and down, drifting all around. What would you use to stop the ship from drifting away? An anchor. And just like an anchor keeps the ship in place, anchor points keep you from drifting away from your language. So an anchor point is a connection to the language that keeps you attached to the language and motivated to learn the language. One great example is language school. Imagine you signed up and paid thousands of dollars up front. Paying that much would motivate you to make the most of your time there. It's also a big commitment, one that you can't easily back out of. And school dictates your schedule. You have to wake up early, you have to do homework. Your life revolves around the classes. And as such, language school and the language itself become anchor points that your life revolves around. Anchor points can also be family or a partner that speaks the language you're learning. You're around them, you're exposed to the language, so your motivation to learn gets a bit stronger. Buying a language learning program or textbook are also examples of good anchor points. You invested your hard-earned money, which means you're serious about learning. Plus, you want to make sure your investment doesn't go to waste, so you're more motivated. If you're wondering if you have any anchor points, you already have at least one. You're watching our lessons on YouTube. But the more anchor points you have, the stronger your motivation will be. So if you're into music or TV shows in your target language, those can serve as anchor points too. These are things that connect you to the language and add a bit of motivation to learn more, or at the very least, understand what you're watching or listening to. We covered goals and anchor points. What's next? The third step is you must have a good grasp of grammar of your native language. Now, you might wonder, if you're learning a new language, why focus on your native language? Well, as native speakers, the problem is we know what good grammar sounds like, but we can't explain how or why our language works the way it works. So if you don't have a good grasp of grammar, the backbone or the rules of a language, then you'll have a tough time learning a new language. You'll jump in and start learning words and phrases, but you'll never learn how to put them together and make sentences. That's a common problem beginners have. Now, if you already know the grammar of your native language,
how do you apply that to your target language? For example, if you're an English speaker, and if you know that English sentences follow the subject, verb, object pattern, and if you know that languages have specific sentence patterns, then you'd go look at patterns. Then you'd have a good idea of how to create your own sentences, instead of learning random words first. Finally, the fourth step is reading. Reading is good simply because you can do it anywhere, anytime, and without a teacher. It's a skill you can get started on day one, on your own. Reading also tends to spill over into other areas. The more you read, the more words and grammar rules you come across, so you boost your vocabulary and grammar, which can seep into speaking and listening. If you read out loud, you're practicing two skills at once. Now, we've covered what you need: goals, anchor points, reading, and grammar. Setting anchor points, knowing your own grammar, and reading are simple enough, but how do you set goals that don't lead you to failure? Part 2. How to set goals and New Year's resolutions that won't fail you in 2022. The goal that you set can make or break your language learning journey, so setting the right goals makes all the difference between success and failure. Just think about all of the common New Year's resolutions. What comes to mind? Goals like, I want to be fluent someday. I want to speak the language. I want to lose weight. I want to save more money. These big, vague goals often lead to failure because you simply have no idea how to approach the goal and you don't know what you're aiming for. Instead, your goals should be small, measurable, and monthly. For example, speak 1 minute of conversation by the end of the month. Learn 100 words by the end of the month. Finish Chapter 1 of your language textbook by the end of the month. If you're using our program, finish 20 audio lessons by the end of the month. All of these are small and specific. 1 minute, 100 words, 1 chapter, 20 audio lessons. This means that they're easy to reach, unlike something vague like fluency. They're also measurable. You know when you reach 1 minute. You can check if you know all 100 words or if you finished all 20 lessons. If you aim for fluency, you won't know when you hit it. It's too vague and too big of a goal, and it may take years to hit. Finally, all of these goals have a deadline, the end of the month. That would mean January 31st of this year. Deadlines give you a clear date to aim for, and without one, you'll forever be floating around without much progress. So set a deadline for the end of every month. So now that you know how to set small, measurable monthly goals, leave us a comment. What's your small, measurable monthly goal, and what's the deadline? So thank you for watching this episode of Monthly Review. Next time, we'll talk about how to learn a language in pairs. If you enjoyed these tips, hit the like button, share the video with anyone who's trying to learn a language, and subscribe to our channel. We release new videos every week. And if you're ready to finally learn language the fast, fun, and easy way and start speaking from your very first lesson, get our complete learning program. Sign up for your free lifetime account right now. Click the link in the description. See you next time. Bye! You want to learn a language and succeed, right? But where do you start and what do you do? There's grammar, speaking, listening, reading, and writing. So much to do and no clear pathway to follow. And it can feel overwhelming, right? But what if you had a clear step-by-step path of lessons that taught you everything you needed to know and took you from absolute beginner to advanced, and all you had to do was just follow the pathway? Well, you can do just that with our recommended learning pathway. But if you don't yet have access, sign up for a free lifetime account right now. Just click the link in the description. So, how does our recommended pathway help you learn the language fast? 1. You get a clear starting point. With any goal you have, it's important to know where to start and what steps to take. Otherwise, you quickly get discouraged. So that's where our recommended pathway comes in. The pathway is simply a collection of audio and video lessons to learn with, and assessments that test you on what you've learned in the last few lessons. So you get a clear, step-by-step pathway of lessons laid out for you. Just follow the pathway, complete the lessons, do the assessments, and that's it. You'll find the recommended pathway on your dashboard and in the lesson library. 2. You get lessons that are right for you. When you sign up and set your learning level, whether absolute beginner, intermediate, or advanced, we give you a level-appropriate pathway.
There's Level 1 for absolute beginners, meaning you have no experience. Level 2 for beginners with some experience. And all the way to Level 5 for advanced learners. So your learning experience is tailored to you and where you are in your journey. 3. You can level up your language skills. Instead of wondering if you're improving, how? As you're going through the pathway, you're constantly learning with the lessons, and you're constantly getting tested on what you've learned, with our lessons and multiple choice and hand-graded assessments. You'll find the assessments peppered throughout the pathway after every few lessons. And once you're finished with the Level 1 Absolute Beginner path, we give you Beginner, Level 2, then Intermediate, Level 3, and all the way up to Advanced. 4. You can easily stay on track and reach your language goal. Sticking with goals can be hard, especially when you don't see a clear path from where you are to where you want to be. But with the recommended pathways, you get a clear step-by-step pathway of lessons. All the lessons are laid out in front of you. Just do one lesson a day and follow the path until the end. By the end of that pathway, you'll level up your language. So if you're feeling overwhelmed with language learning and if you just want one clear pathway to follow, take advantage of our recommended learning pathway. But if you don't yet have access, sign up for a free lifetime account right now. Just click the link in the description to sign up. Want to learn your target language with our learning program? Wondering which plan to choose? Today, you'll discover how our Premium Plus plan helps you master the language with complete access to our self-learning program, as well as one-on-one access to your own teacher, language assessment, and ongoing assignments. But first, if you don't have access to our language program, sign up for an account right now. Just click the link in the description to get started. Now, how does the Premium Plus plan help you learn a language faster? 1. You get complete access to our self-learning program, which includes audio and video lessons, app access, and over 15 premium study tools, such as My Flashcards, the voice recorder, and line-by-line dialogue breakdowns. So, when you sign up and set your learning level, we give you a pathway of lessons that you can take anywhere, anytime with our app or on your computer, and extra study tools to help you master the lessons and retain the language. But if you're the type of person who learns better with a teacher, or if you just want to get feedback, then you can get just that with the Premium Plus plan. 2. With Premium Plus, you get one-on-one access to your own teacher, whom you can learn from at your own pace, anywhere, anytime, without being bound to the teacher's schedule. So, when you log in, look for the My Teacher Messenger on the site, or access it inside the app. With the My Teacher Messenger, you can interact as much as you want with your teacher and ask language questions, practice writing, and get corrections and feedback. You can even practice your speaking skills. Send recordings of yourself speaking to your teacher for feedback. In fact, one of the first things you'll have to do is write or record a self-introduction. Your teacher will send you corrections and advice on your pronunciation so that you can introduce yourself perfectly. 3. We personalize your learning experience based on your goals and needs. Just like with real language schools, the moment you join, you take an initial assessment test, which covers all areas: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. The goal is to understand your strengths and weaknesses, so your teacher can design a personalized learning plan just for you. 4. You get ongoing assessments and assignments. It's hard to motivate and push yourself to improve when you're learning on your own. It's much easier when you have a teacher to motivate you. So that's why your teacher sends you weekly assignments, which you'll find in the My Teacher Messenger. Inside your recommended learning pathway, you'll also see multiple choice assessments and hand-graded assessments, which test you on the words and grammar rules you've learned in the prior lessons. And the hand-graded assessments are graded by real teachers, so you can get feedback on what you got wrong and how to improve. So, if you want to learn your target language faster with the Premium Plus plan, then click the link in the description right now. If you're learning the language with our lessons, did you know you also get a bonus study tool that lets you 1. Absorb conversations by reading along. 2. Master grammar rules fast. And 3. Review everything without redoing the lesson. You can do this all with the lesson notes inside of our learning program. But if you don't have access to our program, sign up for a free lifetime account right now. Just click the link in the description. So what are the lesson notes? The lesson notes are simply the written version of our audio and video lessons. Inside, you'll find 1. The dialogue and the translations, 2. The grammar rules for that lesson and the explanations, 3. The lesson's vocabulary in sample sentences, and 4. Cultural insights for that lesson. You'll find the lesson notes in every lesson. You can also download the notes as PDFs and print them out. And there are 3 reasons why this basic study tool makes learning the language super easy. First, you get native conversation and translations in writing. Imagine listening to a conversation in real life. Native speakers speak fast, so you might not understand every single word. But if you have a transcript to follow along with, you can easily pick every word apart and start understanding what the native speakers say. And since you learn a new conversation in every lesson, that's exactly why you get our lesson notes for every lesson, so you can quickly grasp and understand native speech. Second, you can get in-depth grammar explanations and even more examples. One of the best ways to learn grammar is to get used to it through practice and lots of exposure. And with our audio and video lessons, you'll get the grammar rules explained. But if you want the extra exposure, check out the lesson notes for the extra review and even more examples that are not available in the lesson. And 3, you can quickly review what you've learned without retaking a lesson. Again, one of the best ways to pick up a language is through repeated exposure, which means reviewing what you've learned as much as possible. But if you don't want to retake a lesson, then you can quickly review the lesson's dialogue, grammar, and vocabulary with the lesson notes. So if you want to learn the language faster, understand native conversations, and review the lesson content with a quick glance, then take advantage of the lesson notes, which you'll find in every lesson inside of our learning program. But if you don't yet have access, sign up for a free lifetime account right now. Just click the link in the description to sign up. Great work! Here's a reward. Speed up your language learning with our PDF lessons. Get all of our best PDF cheat sheets and ebooks for free. Just click the link in the description.